Hi, so I got some questions about my near-death experience from Doug. So I'm going to go through his questions and then provide an answer to each one. So Doug writes, when you were an orb, ball of energy without a body, did you have a memory of being so for a long time? Anything prior? Were all your lives lived prior to this, or was this the very beginning of your consciousness? It does make sense to me, and other NDEs have said the same thing regarding the orb of energy. Without a body, we are spirit energy, I suppose, but an energy with a distinct individualism. True? All right. So when I was the orb, the ball of energy without a body, um, I don't really have a memory prior to that. Um, During that time, I did have the question, what was I before this? Like, where was I before this? That question was very early on in my memory of being that orb in that sea of light. But I don't really know what happened before that, if anything, or if that was the creation, the first time I had ever been brought into existence. I don't know. Um, and so that was prior to any of these earthly lives. That existence is that orb of light in that sea of souls, where I was ignorant and without any kind of experience. That was prior to ever coming to Earth. Yeah, other NDEs, other people who've had this kind of experience, they talk about the orb of energy, orb of light, a little ball of consciousness. A lot of people have seen that same kind of thing and have the same kind of view that I got to have. All right, so Doug asked, if a gift or cookie was given to you, did that imply that there was a better or worse reality and a willingness on your and God's part to start the game? Perhaps you displayed a willingness to begin a journey, a free will journey. Free will makes sense to me. Imagine having a dice with the same markings on every side. Every time you throw the dice, it's the same, all pointless. So life as a game makes sense. And with free will, and so we must have had a sense of a knowing that we were godlike, and so that to live that likeness and a lifelike model. So um, I wouldn't say that getting that gift or the cookie that was given to me in that sea of souls, it necessarily implied to me that there was a better reality, a further area I could grow to beyond that. It was just something nice to have. We were all happy to get it. But it didn't, for me at that time or in that realm, create any kind of bigger question or uh, any internal searching for a meaning behind this greater reality. It was just we were very simple and we got something that we enjoyed. That's all I remember it as. Um, but yeah, uh, it, so what for me and what I view for God was that when I was willing to give up something that I wanted for the benefit of those around me, like that was the key moment. That's when it indicated to God that I was ready to begin a bigger journey. And I was told point blank that that was very important to give up something that I wanted for those around me. And I think that I still view that the same way. Like it's important for us people to give up the things that we want to help those around us. It's very important that we're capable of doing that if we really want to get to the higher levels. All right. Doug goes on. The God face you described reminded me of some frogs or toads in nature that carry hundreds of little ones on their back, small to large, like fractals. Does that make any sense? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I completely agree. I have the same idea about fractals. Like a lot of the core truths about God, they're replicated in a smaller, simpler form here on Earth, and that's one of them. Like frogs and other animals that carry a whole bunch of babies on their back. To me, that very much reminds me of God, and how I saw saw God's face. That there's like one big entity, but there was billions and billions of little entities that all made up that big entity. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I agree completely. And if we're going to talk about frogs or toads, this is a little bit gross, so I wouldn't normally say this, but you brought it up, so I'll go ahead and go for it. If you've ever seen a group of frog eggs or toad eggs, the way they look, it kind of reminds me of what the Sea of Souls look like. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all round. They're all there together. And I know it might look a little bit gross, but there's like an intimacy there where they're all, next to each other, like almost on top of each other. And to me, there's a similarity between what frog eggs look like and what the Sea of Souls looked like when I was there. There's just a similarity there. Doug goes on, how could God ask, are you sure, if you have no reference to what being sure was? Or did you, knowing the consequences of how good looking or rich you are, etc.? So basically, there was some back and forth to a lot of these decisions. There was some discussion and some give and take, and the guides or God might suggest one thing, and maybe I'd have a question or want clarification or suggest some sort of alternative. And so there was some back and forth. But once uh, all those decisions were made and we had reached a final conclusion, then there was like a final question. Okay, now that we've decided all this, are you still sure? It was like a final chance to look at everything in its entirety and make sure that I was good with it. And so I didn't see that there was any problem with that. Like I thought it was very reasonable. All right, so Doug goes on. So we choose our life. Does that mean we choose our nationality, ethnicity, sex, and so on? Then so-called minorities, Native Americans, and disabled, etc., are exactly where they should be and not by random chance at all. Then the reality of racism, so to speak, is as it should be, and we were to choose how we treat each other from that baseline. So yeah, we choose or at least have some input into what kind of nationality we have, what ethnicity we have, the gender, if we're a minority or not. We have input into all that. And a soul doesn't have any of that. Okay, a soul doesn't have a nationality or a race or anything like that. It's a very earth-based situation to have a race or a nationality. Um, but those differences, the difference of different tribes, different nations, different races, that's a deliberate obstacle for us to overcome. You know, if we can overcome that, hey, some other people look a little bit different than I do. If we can overcome that, then it's that much easier when we get back to the spiritual realms to love and accept others, where those specific kind of differences don't exist. Um, I saw that I had been other genders, other nationalities, other races in previous lives. Like I've been through a number of these different things. And there's one thing I want to point out about race, since you brought it up, is that one thing that was shown to me is that uh, a person might be one race during one given life and hate other races. Okay, and they go through their life, they hate others that don't look like them, and they get to the spiritual realm, and the guides need to teach them and explain to them, this isn't good. You can't just hate others of a different race. And the person, or I'm sorry, the soul might think, well, it would be easier for me to love and accept other races if I was this other race. And so they'll swap and be a different race, and they'll come back to Earth, and they'll have the exact same problem where they hate other people of different races. And they might go through this several times, going back and forth between different races before they finally recognize that, hey, this is an internal problem. I've got to change myself and be more loving and accepting. And my guides pointed that out to me that some individuals would have to go back and forth several times in order to make the changes internally that they needed to be loving and accepting of others. Um, all right. So Doug goes on, memory seems key. In our own nightly dreams, we wake up and most often cannot remember the same pre-birth and same afterbirth. Is this all an indication of as above, below, the large to the small, the parent to the child, and so on? I see this reverberate uh, itself in nature. Yeah, uh, I like what you're saying with that. There's a lot of these little parts of our human existence that are, I would call like an ugly reflection of some deeper spiritual truth. Like everything in this physical realm, it has some larger spiritual principle or concept that it's created from. And I don't think there's any coincidence that we, have dreams at night and then we wake up and we realize, okay, that dream that felt so real, it's not actually real. Okay. I think, I got to see this for myself, and I think we're all going to get there when after we're done with this life, we're going to die, and we're basically going to be waking up in the spiritual realm again, and we're going to have that same kind of thought where it's like, wow, that felt so real, but I now realize that it's not real. Everyone's going to get there when they're done with their life. But yeah, I really like that about uh, the sorry, I can't say this word, reverberation itself through nature. Um, that yeah, that all these different things in this world, there's like a deeper, more meaningful corresponding principle in the spiritual realms. All right, Doug goes on. How much do angels and guardians interact with us? Do prayers prompt a response? Is there actual interaction between us and the other side, our guides? People such as Anita Morhani have had a NDE and been cured of cancer. Um, so, how much do angels and guardians interact with us? I feel like uh, I didn't have an explicit answer to this during my experience, but um, my own view is that yeah, these angels or guardians or there's some spiritual entity that's pretty much monitoring us at all times during our life, and they're there if we need them to help point us in the right direction, or if something that's not supposed to happen according to the plan, they might help push the events of the day such that we stay where on the path that we're supposed to be on that brings us the most spiritual growth. Not necessarily the easiest path, so don't get that confused. Um, so yeah, I think our guardians are with us pretty much all the time, and they're there to point us in the right direction, generally through our conscious. There's times in life where I feel like they're pushing me one way or another. Um, all within a respect of my free will, but they're kind of trying to encourage me to do the right things. Do prayers prompt a response? So my experience didn't shed any light on prayers, but my understanding, listening to other people's experience, is that yeah, our prayers are heard, they're understood perfectly, and that they're answered perfectly. Not that we always get what we want, but that our prayers very much are heard on the other side, and that they know what we're saying and asking for, and that they respond appropriately. Um, I've heard that name, Anita Morhani, but I don't really know much about it. But apparently, she was cured of cancer. Um, there's a lot of NDEers who have been cured of some kind of major medical condition. I think it's pretty clear that, at least to me, that um, that provides a lot of proof that what they're saying about their near-death experience is valid, and they have these physical proof of a miraculous cure that gives us, further evidence that yeah, these near-death experiences really can teach us about the afterlife. Doug asks, can we really change our destiny? Why do some things seem so easy to some to attain, and to others who want it even more, they cannot get traction? Um, so the first part, can we change our destiny? We always have free will. We can always change, uh, how things are going to progress. If we just, as I like to say, get with the program. God's got this plan where we all become loving, kind, compassionate, honest, um, have self-control. We have fairness, generosity. If we just get with that program and act how we know that we should act, in all those positive, loving ways, then we can change our destiny and make it easier. So I think if we can try to do those things, it's going to be an easier path for us all. But regardless, we can change our destiny. We have free will all the time. Um, so why are some things easier to obtain for some rather than others? Remember, we're not seeing the full picture. When we look at someone's life and we see what they have going on, you're not seeing their past, you're not seeing their past lives, and you're also not seeing their future or their future lives. Um, that person who has something that's easy to obtain, they might have gone through, five lifetimes of difficulty before they got here to where they can attain some of this stuff more easily. And likewise, you might specifically have chosen a certain challenge. Um, you may have in the past obtained something easily, but now you're here specifically to face some challenge. And so during this life, it's more difficult for you just because you need that extra spiritual growth, and that's what you wanted out of this life. So you couldn't really gauge or tell between one person or another why it's easier for some people than others, but there is a reason behind it. And when we get back to the other side, we should be able to see that. So Doug asks, do you listen to NDEs? If so, would you suggest ones that you like or you find credible? Yeah, I do listen to other NDEs. I've read a couple books. That's kind of how I got it started, was reading some of the books that people have written. Um, and some of the ones that I like Howard Storm. I think he has a very good experience. I actually got to meet him several years ago. He was doing a presentation in Virginia Beach, so I was happy about that. Um, Daniel Brinkley comes to mind. He got struck by lightning, and he wrote a book about his near-death experience. Uh, let's see, Edgar Casey, I think is one. No, I'm sorry, that's not him. I'm getting myself confused. But yeah, there's a lot out there. Those are just a couple that I like, and none other ones come to mind. I guess Betty Eady comes to mind. She wrote a book also. But anyway, thanks for the questions, Doug. I hope I've answered them appropriately, and I wish you all the best.